to allow him to attend telephonically.
So move.
Second.
That doesn't have to be a roll call, does it?
No, all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Trustee Paveza?
Here.
Trustee Snyder?
Here.
Trustee Matal? Yeah, here. Trustee Smith is not here. Trustee Francis is not here. Mayor Grasso?
Here. Okay,
We have a physical quorum present.
we do have, for the record, a physical quorum. We have no presentations or public hearings tonight. That'll take us to item 4, the consent agenda. An item shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any one trustee or anyone present at the meeting. Those items marked with an asterisk are considered the consent agenda. A roll call shall be taken on the approval of the consent agenda and recorded in the minutes as an omnibus vote. If an item is removed from the consent agenda, it will be discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes A, approval of regular board meeting of February 12, 2024. B, receive and file plan commission meeting of February 19, 2024. And C, receive and file plan commission meeting of March 4, 2024. Ordinances A, approval of an ordinance granting a special use for the continued use of a non-conforming chain link fence on the subject property pursuant to ordinance A 834-0119 and sections 4J and 12F3 of the Burr zoning ordinance, Z 17-2023, 16W 020, 79th Street, Dovisky Lions Truck Sales. B, approval of an ordinance granting a special use for an appointment-only exercise facility in a general industrial zone district in accordance with zoning ordinance section 10F2EZ 2023 8320 to 8350 Madison Street, Unit 8350B, Petty Overtime Sports LLC. And C, approval of an ordinance granting a special use from sections 4J and 10F of the Burr zoning ordinance, for equipment sales and rentals, outdoor storage, and for a fence in a non-conforming, non-residential district, Z 18-2023, 411 to 421, Heathrow Court, Shipper ARX perimeters. 7, resolutions, approval of a resolution approving the motor fuel tax allotment for fiscal year 2025. And B, approval of a resolution approving the Rebuild Illinois grant for fiscal year 2025. 8, considerations B, approval of road program contract to Schroeder Asphalt Services, Inc. of Huntley, Illinois, in the amount of $669,660.45. C, approval of award of contract for the pump center fence and gate installation to K Brothers Fence, Inc. of Mokina, Illinois, in the amount of $90,912.00. D, approval to direct staff to prepare an ordinance approving a special use for the real estate office in a B2 General Business District, Z01, 2024, 101 Burr Ridge Parkway, Smith, Remax. E, approval of a request for a raffle license for Gower School PTO and hosting facility license for Burr Ridge Park District for its trivia night on April 27, 2024. F, approval of vendor list dated February 26, 2024 for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $768,646.77 for all funds, plus $241,097.83 for payroll period ending February 17, 2024, for a grand total of $1,009,744.60. And G, approval of vendor list dated March 11, 2024 for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $275,961.48 for all funds, plus $247,414.84 for payroll period ending March 2, 2024 for a grand total of $523,376.32. With that, can I get a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5, A, B, and C. 6, A, B, and C. 7, A and B. 8, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any comment by, or any discussion by the trustees?
I just have one comment, Mayor.
Yes.
Regarding the approval of the road program. I want to just congratulate Dave Pressing and his team for working very hard and diligently, getting 7 different quotes to provide this road services. He's looking out for the taxpayers and working very hard, and also with the fence installation, getting those 7 quotes out, or receiving the 7 quotes, and just stretching our tax dollars for the residents.
And as you note, and also getting us the best price and the most competitive price.
Yep.
So, thank you for that. Any
you.
other comments at the
I
trustee
just-
level?
I just want to carry on from what trustee Schiappa said, that, I mean, Dave, he really makes an effort to keep our roads in tip-top condition. I would say all the residents agree that we have the best roads in the nearby suburbs. So thank you, Mr. Preissing.
Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
4-0.
4-0, the motion passes. All right, that takes us right to considerations A, consideration of draft fiscal year 2025 budget. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. So at this point, we'll be starting our first complete review of the FY 2025 draft budget. This is going to take us through every fund and every department of every fund. So please bear with us as we move through these. Some of this stuff will be somewhat repetitive. You've already heard something about the capital fund. A number of other items have already been discussed. But we feel like it's important to make sure we give the board a once-over on a high-level basis, just to make sure you are aware of everything that is in this proposed budget. At this point, this is now your budget. Staff has taken your direction, and we believe we've returned a document which matches your will and your direction. And at this point, it is up to you as a board to tell us where you think, if at all, it needs to be changed to better meet your direction. So just please keep that in mind. I do want to start just by noting the great work and hard work that staff has put in to put this budget forward. I have heard a lot of compliments about the design of the budget, the presentation of the budget and the like, and that's due to the fact that we have Amory and Heather, who are here from our finance department, who made it all happen in that regard, but everybody else who participated in the budget process, making sure we had good numbers, the right numbers to put forward. If something is going to cost something, we want to make sure it's reflected in that accurately. So I just want to start by thanking staff. They did a really great job of putting a lot of value into this budget, and we're looking forward to presenting it tonight. So kicking off, it's important we talk about the review and adoption process. That's tonight, is our presentation. It's high level, educational, informational. It's a good time for discussion and direction. We'll have one more chance, if necessary, to review this on March 25th. That's our next board meeting. That will be your last opportunity to provide direction to us prior to the budget hearing on April 22nd. We cannot accept changes to the budget ordinance on April 22nd. It is about a 30-page document and takes forever to put together. So I just want to be very clear that you have 2 chances as a board, if necessary, to review and direct the budget to be changed as necessary. If there's not a need for other changes, we can move forward. But I just want to be clear that we are not taking changes on April 22nd. Okay. I want to go right into the highlights. We have a number of highlights. These are things that have been said by the mayor, by others at length, but I think they bear repeating again. We are a debt-free community, which is very, very important. We have a lot of healthy fund balances and equity, as you'll see going through the budget. We are now only 1.5% of the property tax bill. That's partially due to the fact that we haven't raised property taxes in 3 years, so our share is going down. This is the first year with the revised police pension funding policy. We'll talk more about it as we move forward. There is a growing number of businesses opening in the village. 3 years ago, we had 24 place of eating tax businesses that were paying in. Now we have 33, just to give you a broad idea of how we're growing as a community. There still remains a lot of potential for economic development growth in the community, giving us a lot more capacity to bring in revenue without having to resort to a property tax increase. There's $22 million in vital capital investment plan for the next 5 years, and there's no need for debt or property tax increase to do any of that. We'll be talking about a multi-departmental reorganization. We're leading to a reduced personnel spending and enhanced service delivery, so we're going to do more with less going forward with this budget. And finally, the hallmark of any village, community, et cetera, is its people. Most services are provided by a human, or at least managed by a human, and I think we have really high-quality services being provided by well-equipped, capable staff in all of our departments. We are almost fully staffed at this point. As of next week, we'll be fully staffed. I'm very excited for the things that we'll be doing over the next year. One note that we will talk about more towards the end of the budget presentation, though, is that as of July 1st, 2024, you are advised to plan for a $200,000 a year reduction in general fund revenue starting next year compared to the draft budget. So the revenue numbers you've got right there are probably $200,000 over, and that's due to the elimination of the local share of the grocery sales tax, and that is something that's been proposed by Governor Pritzker, not anyone locally. So just want to keep that in mind as we move forward here, but those are your highlights. I think it is important to note our strategic goals are in progress. We've made a lot of headway on a lot of these things. Some of these things are completed, some of these things are in progress, and some of these things need a little bit more attention going forward. But I think overall these strategic goals are coming a long way. And I think we've come a long way thanks to the board's direction in terms of prioritizing what you want to see done. That's a high level of the budget at large. I'd like to ask Anne Marie Mompe, our finance consultant, to come up and start talking about fund balance analysis and other elements of the budget. Anne Marie.
Good evening. You went a lot faster than I thought you were going to. I wasn't ready.
Okay.
So up on the screen is pretty much the village's funds across all funds, your governmental funds, your enterprise funds, your police pension fund. It shows a total fund balance projected at the end of 2025 of about $33.6 million. I'm going to kind of focus on the general fund for a minute. Your general fund balance of $5.7 million is approximately $2.9 million over the board authorized policy level. So that's great liquidity. That's very healthy. We have really good, solid, consistent revenue sources. We don't rely heavily on property taxes. We actually eliminated the corporate property tax levy for tax levy 24 due in 25. So all you have in your general fund for property taxes is the police protection line item of the levy. Like I said, that's a really healthy fund balance that the village should be really proud of. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It allows you to fund your capital if you need to. It allows you to do one-time items if they should come about. There's probably not many municipalities out there that can say that they're almost double of what their policy calls for. So that's a very healthy fund balance. Your MFT, your motor fuel, your hotel, motel, and the CIP funds. Motor fuel has a slightly lower fund balance. Hotel, motel also. Your CIP has a really healthy fund balance, and this is after funding the $3.9 million in capital for fiscal year 2025. So just having those revenues or those fund balances there that allow you to maybe do an extra project or have funding for the next year, those are just really healthy, good fund balances to have. Once again, a lot of smaller municipalities literally drain those funds every year down to almost zero to fund their capital, and the village didn't have to do that. The water fund reflects $2.7 million in capital. Once again, that's a huge amount of capital to undertake. The fund balance will continue to grow over time. A rate study was done. The rates are set per the board ordinance based upon the rate study, and that rate study did include capital in each year. Some years are a little bit higher than others, so you'll see that fund balance fluctuate, but we have, once again, a healthy fund balance in that fund as well as in the sewer fund. The police pension fund, obviously, that's set aside for pension benefits for future retirees, and I'll get a little bit more into that later on. The spending there is mostly related to paying pension benefits. Personnel, one of the biggest changes, I guess, for the year is the reestablishment of the Community Development Department. That was a department of its own a few years ago, before my time, and now it's going to be a standalone department once again, and Janine will go into a lot more detail on that when she gives her presentation. We've held staffing equal. We actually reduced it by one full-time equivalent, which is actually 2 part-time positions. But I think the most important thing to look at on this slide is in 2009, I blind, I gotta look down here. In 2009, we had 62 full-time, and in 2025, we only have 59. And we had 12 part-time, and now we only have 5. So we're doing so much more, you know, some of it's technology, some of it's just true labor, but we're doing so much more with less employees. I don't think you probably see that very often either in a smaller community. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I tend to talk fast. The next slide is the general fund. So I'm going to talk about revenues first. We budget the revenues very conservatively. We don't overestimate revenues on purpose. We don't want to, you know, show that we have funds that we're not going to have. We use the IML estimates to estimate all of our state shared revenues that are based on per capita. They come out with estimates usually twice a year. If something crazy happens, we use the October numbers, and if something crazy happens, they'll publish another one in February, and we'll adjust our numbers to that. So we don't necessarily just use averages for those revenues. We actually base it on the research that IML does. Once again, we have solid revenue sources. There's great opportunity for growth in many of our revenue sources. We minimized our reliance on property taxes, which is huge. You've always got that property tax lever if you needed it. Controls over spending are there. We have a good purchasing policy. We have good purchasing procedures. We do bids correctly. We issue purchase orders to track our spending. We have a really good budget process. We look at every detail. We use our technology now to kind of capture our budget data and analyze it in our financial system. One of the things with the general fund too is if you look at that bottom line, those transfers out, we've transferred over $5.8 million out to the capital fund in the last 4 years. That's huge. That doesn't happen often, and the fact that we're able to do that just kind of tells you you've got some really healthy financial practices.
Anne Marie, would you go to the top?
Yep.
The sales use and e-tax line, is that where we're going to lose the grocery tax?
Yes. And those are estimates, the 200,000, I mean, it's an estimate, but yeah, that's the line that it would come out of.
Okay, I'll have more comment on the grocery tax as we go along, but thank you.
Okay.
We're going to get into our departments at this point. Any other questions in the general fund or other at this point? None. Okay. Very briefly, this is the boards and commissions. We're going to go through every general fund department at this point. This is the boards and commissions. This is the legislative functions of the village. It is essentially the board's directions and the board's spending. We have been able to reduce this budget pretty considerably over time. I know it only looks like at about $60,000, but by percentage it's quite a bit. The majority of the spending in this department is related to legal services. As we all know, we outsource our legal services. This is related to not only Storino, Rommel, and Durkin, but this is also spending we do for a couple of other minor attorneys we use for specialized items like labor, but also as well as paying for administrative adjudication through our law judge. That's all reflected in contractual services. But overall, as you can see, we've been able to hold the line and really drive some value out of this department. Moving on to administration. As village administrator, I'm also actually the head of the administration department. This is what we call kind of the hub of the wheel. We're there to make sure that the leadership from all the other departments is provided and implement the board's directions. As has been noted, we do a lot of customer service. Most of our inbound communication to the village comes through our administration department. We do FOIA, IT, risk management, labor, and the like. 5 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees in this department. As you can see, we've continued to drive a lot of value out of this department as well going forward. We're going to do budget highlights both last year and this year for every department. So in 2024, we played a big role in doing our new police pension funding policy. Our goal is a 90% funding ratio by 2040 per state law. Compared to the old policy, as I think the board is aware, that'll be a projected savings of about $8 million. That's all things that don't have to come out of the property tax or the like. We attained the highest safety rating from the IRMA, our risk management agency. We had reduced insurance fees this past year. Something that the police might hit on is we're actually going to be part of a feature interview cohort with our police department because our police department is so high attaining with IRMA. They want to know what makes the sauce so special here in the village. There were 2 extensions to our water tower rental agreements, over $2.5 million in value. Basically, we allow people to put things on our water tower. That provides us a lot of financial value. And our communications is something else we do. We've had a lot of year-to-year impression growth that goes on over time. That's primarily our social media and our Oak Leaf newsletter. So we've had a lot of success there. Next year, we're going to be working on implementation of a long-term village facilities plan. We've talked about that at some length at the board level. We'll be supporting the board and the community's vision for your TCF and CNH redevelopment opportunities, continuing to expand our village communication special event services, which we'll talk about in a bit. And we're going to begin negotiating 3 bargaining unit agreements, both now and in FY 2025. So we've got a pretty busy year ahead. I'm going to head on the IT department for a minute. This used to be the IT fund, but now it's the general fund department, the information technology department. We have no personnel costs reflected in this department, no employees, et cetera. This is essentially all the software we buy as part of our village. So things that the board has approved in the past 2 years, such as flock cameras, body cameras, our ERP, things like that are tracked out of this department. We also have Orbis, who is our specialist, who we use for any technical issues out of this fund as well under the contractual services line. But essentially, this is just a place where we can house all of our centralized accounting for our information technology. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Janine Farrell to discuss the Community Development Department.
All right, thank you, Evan. So as Anne-Marie stated earlier, prior to FY 2019, Community Development was actually its own department. From FY 19 to 24, the department was a division within administration and public works departments. So it is anticipated with FY 2025 that community development will become its own department once again. It's important to note that there is no change in the number of full or part-time employees associated with the reorganization. The organizational chart, as you see here on the screen, and as it currently stands today, will not be changed. There will be some minor tweaks to a couple employees' job titles, however. Go on to the next slide. Thank you. Community Development's FY 2024 accomplishments were part of the Public Works Department's accomplishments in your budget narrative, since we are a division within Public Works currently. We continue to see an increase in the number of building permits that have been received and issued. And we have made progress with proactive code enforcement by hiring a full-time code enforcement officer. The number of requests for service or the code enforcement related complaints has also increased as well. In FY 24, and in support of the strategic goal, the ad hoc committee meetings were held for both the CNH and TCF properties. And then transitioning into FY 2025, Community Development will continue to support the board and the community's visions for the TCF and CNH properties redevelopment projects. We are also going to begin the process to allow for online building permit submittals, and that will actually begin to happen once we transition to our new enterprise software system. This will bring the village in line with other local municipalities and provide a convenient service for residents, business owners, and their contractors. Community Development also intends to implement a contractor registration program, which is very common in local municipalities around here. It's a method to protect residents by ensuring that the contractors they're using are licensed, insured, and bonded. We are currently in the beginning stages of updating the building ordinance, which is an FY24 goal, but we anticipate adoption in early FY25. But coinciding with that, we took the time to evaluate our permit and our zoning fees. And we are budgeting for an adjustment in 2025. So on the next slide, you can see here that it has been several years since we have updated our permit and zoning fees, even though the number of permits has continued to increase. We've done some preliminary research on how much we're being charged by our third-party plan reviewers and what other local municipalities are charging in this area. And just for reference, we do have 2 different types of permits. We have flat rate permits, which account for the majority of the permit types that you see, such as decks, patios, fences. And then we have a variable rate permit, which is based upon cubic or square footage. For our flat rate permits, the village is actually losing money. So our third-party reviewer is charging us more than we are charging our residents. And through research, we found that the village also has some of the most inexpensive variable rate permits in this area for residential. For the variable rate permits, we anticipate an adjustment per cubic and square foot in the amount of 10 and 20% for residential and then non-residential respectively. The flat rate permits will also be increased, but they will still remain a flat rate. We do have some other alterations and adjustments that we'd like to make to our permit review, resubmittals, and our reinspection fees.
Janine, is that to level the playing field and right. We've been maybe a little too gracious over the years on our fees. So when you use numbers like 10 or 20%, that really is an increase to just bring us even. We're not going to be making any money. We're just not going to lose any more money. Is that the idea?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And as we have here on the bottom here, we would still, even with these adjustments, which we are planning for in FY 2025, so the proposed budget includes these increases would be before you for consideration, though, actually at your next meeting in April. So even with these adjustments, the village would still remain in the bottom half of all permit categories compared with our neighboring municipalities. So we would not be charging more than, Hinsdale, Willowbrook, Willow Springs, so on and so forth.
So being in the bottom half in that sense is a good thing.
It is, yes. It helps us to actually cover the costs that we're being charged for the permits.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me before I step down?
Okay, hearing none. Finance?
So the finance department is obviously responsible for managing the overall finances of the village. We do payroll, accounts payable, bank reconciliations, budget, audit, anything financial related. We have 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. The part-time employee is a new hire. With that new hire, we're able to limit the amount of time that both of the consultants spend here at the village. So it's a win-win. The budget doesn't fluctuate much from year to year within the department. If you want to flip to the next page, some of our highlights in 2024, we assisted with the implementation of the Foundation Burr Ridge, and we'll continue to fine-tune that as the years go on. We implemented a long-term financial forecast, and we also do cash flow forecasting on a monthly basis. So we're able to watch our cash levels and determine if we should be moving some of it over to investments or if we need to bring some over. So we look at that every month. We've reviewed and updated some of the village's financial policies. It's best practice to look at them periodically, bring any changes to the board that are necessary. We did receive the GFOA awards again this year for the PAFR, the ACFR, and the budget, and we'll continue to apply for those every year. As Evan said earlier, we came up with a revised pension funding policy. We assisted with the implementation of that. And that results in significant savings based upon certain assumptions over the coming years. One of the biggest parts of that new policy was funding based upon the recommended contribution as opposed to the minimum. And then we are working on implementing vendor payment options. Right now, we pretty much pay most vendors by check. That's one of the most unsafe ways to pay. So we're implementing different automated ways of paying our vendors, and most of them that have come on board so far, we're really excited about it. For 2025, we're going to complete the implementation of the cloud version of our current software system. We're going to hopefully be live on March 25th, if all goes well. But the implementation and the use of the functionality will continue for months. There's a lot of functionality that's offered by that software that we don't currently use. So all of the departments will continue working on that. Continue to work on enhancements to our revenue collection. We invoice vendors for various reasons. We have businesses that pay places of eating taxes. We have water bills due. So we just want to make sure that we're collecting what's due to us. So we put in some really good procedures for following up on those things on a monthly basis. And then once again, just kind of continuously review the processes within our department and make sure that we're doing things as efficiently as possible and using the technology that we have.
You first, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just about, going for e-payables or virtual card payments, are there any charges or fees like if?
There is, but just the research of the cost of issuing a check, the cost of the personnel issuing the check, printing the check, paying for the paper, paying the bank fees for clearing checks. It's actually cheaper to pay somebody electronically than it is to pay them by paper check. And we've done the research, the bank has brought us that research, so it is less expensive and it's safer.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anybody else? I have a question about the police pension fund. Is this now, or you want, is that coming up?
Let's hold that. We'll go over that at the end.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions in finance?
Sorry? No.
Any other questions in finance?
Anybody else? Joe, anything?
No, I'm good, sir.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
Well, the police department for the current fiscal year remains at 32 full-time employees, 28 sworn officers, and 4 civilian. Of the 4 civilian employees, 2 of them are record specialists, 1 is an executive assistant, and the 4th is a community service officer, which is a civilian position. Some budget highlights for FY24. We were awarded a grant in 2023 to purchase 20 flock LPR cameras. As you know, that's been our goal over the past years, to roll out additional flock LPR cameras throughout the village of Burr Ridge. I could say the program is working great, and it works in conjunction with police departments all in the area, and we're working together on that. We started a drone program in 2022, and it continues to be a huge success. We have 4 FAA trained pilots for the drone. We're expanding our drones to a second drone, which would be smaller, less expensive, which would be used for interior searches of buildings and also for training for the pilots. The pilots have to have continuous training throughout the year. They have to get in their hours, and rather than using a $20,000 drone to do that, it's better to use a small, inexpensive drone just in case there's an accident. During this fiscal year, we implemented Lexipol, which was a budget item for the police department. That is a policy management system. It's a software. Over the past 9 months, we started in May of 23, and we've went through every single policy in the police policy and procedure with Lexipol. We worked on that on a weekly basis over 9 months, and we have constitutionally sound, updated policies, which conform with the Safety Act that was passed in 2021. That was a huge help. We partnered with Hinsdale, the Village of Hinsdale, and the Village of Clarendon Hills police departments to provide safety to District 181 grade schools. This is a project that the chiefs worked on, and we worked on it with Dr. Garcia in District 181. They wanted increased security in the schools. The program that currently exists involves having sworn officers on overtime. We share between the 3 towns. 1 officer will patrol 9 grade schools in District 181. As you know, District 181 services Burr Ridge families for grade schools. That program has been a success, and we're actually expanding the program. One thing I want to say is when a Burr Ridge officer, Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills officer works that detail, that's paid for by the school district. The officer is working overtime, and they're assigned just to those schools, but the school district reimburses the 3 villages for that time. That's a successful program. It's going to be expanded in the next school year, and I'll be coming forward with information on that program. We've had 4 lateral transfer police officers hired. Being a non-home rule community, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners are restricted. We have to follow the guidelines set forth in state law for hiring sworn police officers. There's 2 programs. There's the traditional hire, where we hire an individual, goes through the program of a battery of testing with the BFPC, and then goes to the police academy for 14 weeks, comes back to the Burr Ridge Police Department for 12 additional weeks. It takes about 9 months to a year to onboard a new police officer. For the lateral program, which is set forth in state law, we can hire a lateral transfer that has 2 or more years of sworn experience. They come to our agency, we train them in-house because they're already certified, and they're on the street in 4 months. So a significant help for small agencies like ourselves, and I'm proud to report to you that next Monday we'll hire our final lateral, which will put us at full staff. Last week, we completed one of our goals, a village-wide emergency management tabletop exercise, which was a success. And lastly, we are, a budget item is we're replacing our Glock firearms. Firearms we have are 12 to 15 years old. That is the normal replacement schedule for us with our handguns. And we've ordered those, and we're transitioning to a 9mm caliber weapon, which we believe performs better than the current .40 caliber ammunition. Looking forward, some budget highlights for FY25. I already discussed we're expanding the drone program. We're also purchasing Pursuit tire deflation devices. They're also known as spike strips. We use them. There's certain guidelines according to policy when officers can use the strips, and they're safe for the fleeing vehicle. It takes it does not deflate the tires immediately. It's a slow deflation, and most often it stops the person from fleeing. So we're transitioning over to a better product in the next budget year. We're also replacing personal protective gear for all the sworn officers. We're continuing our enterprise fleet leasing program. This has been kind of a nightmare for us as everybody that wanted to purchase vehicles. We were probably 3 years behind on fleet replacement. We are just now waiting for 4 vehicles, probably the end of the year, and then we'll be caught up. We will be, all of our vehicles will be enterprise fleet leased vehicles. The program has been, it's been very good for us. We're getting quality vehicles. Most importantly, the vehicles that the village owns, Enterprise sells those vehicles, and they're getting a lot more money than we did in local auctions. And lastly, we continue with our Lexipol and CALIA programs. CALIA's national accreditation program, as you know, I've stood before you many times speaking of CALIA. Lexipol and CALIA work together to complement each other, and it provides the most up-to-date, constitutionally sound policies. National accreditation comes in. We're going through this right now. We have an assessor in the audience, and the assessor comes in and pretty much validates that we actually follow our policies and procedures that are mandated. And these are best practices. That's it for the slides. I'll entertain any questions.
Anyone? Yes.
I know last year we secured a grant to purchase 20 additional flock cameras. Do we have any budgeted for this year?
No, we're still working on those other cameras that were in the grant. They're very slow to roll out because of the locations they're in and permits of installation, but we will be coming back to purchase more.
Okay, and these ones that are getting installed are in those right-of-ways?
Correct.
You know, the arterial streets?
Yeah, it's our goal to have them in the ingress, egress to the village.
Okay.
We want to capture those plates coming in and out of Burr Ridge.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and that is the times that we live in today. There may have been times a generation or two ago that people would find that to be intrusive. It's quite the opposite right now. People want that so that they know, that we know who's coming and going in the village, and you know, they're keeping safe. So this is all pursuant to board policy, village policy. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next will be Dave, Public Works Department. Come on down, Dave.
I say it's hard to follow the police. But in Public Works, you know, we are responsible to manage and maintain the built environment within our public ways. The documents and things you'll find here start on page 109 of your budget document. And the administrator and I really over the past several months have looked at our department to find, are we staffed appropriately and are we resilient for the challenges that we will be facing this year and in future years. And we really then focused on 3 results from those discussions. And one was that as you heard before, community development department creation, shedding that from within Public Works to create its own department for all the needs coming forth there. But then also with an existing vacant position, we're transforming that to a deputy director, like a number 2 within our department, to help handle some of the department's operational staff, allow then for the director to manage the other plans and programs that we're doing. But then third is the elimination of 2 permanent part-time employees. The results of that then are that we are operating at 15 full-time employees in our department going forward. So the numbers that you'll see there are found on page 113 of your budget. Some of the highlights in fiscal year 2024, really Mother Nature did it for us in several instances. First was, we've really canceled winter. We're coming to an end, really. That alone is really going to save us about $24,000 in road salt alone. But where she give us, she take it away. And back in July of last year, we had our EF1 tornado. That was the second tornado really in a 2-year span. So we've had a lot of cleanup and stuff involved with that. So you'll see those items maybe a little bit over budget in our current year, fiscal year budget. But then it has focused on projects, maintenance, and service delivery. And some of those projects, the highlights there are the Wolf Road pedestrian signal improvement. Nothing's up there yet, but we are promised that we will be starting that around spring break, so the end of March. When students are out of session, the contractor's going to begin there. Road program project, again, we started very early this past fiscal year and finished very early as a result. We really had no winter. We had a great construction season last time too. Upgraded some LED street lights, again, for savings for electricity and maintenance there too. But one of the bigger, some of the bigger projects that are about service delivery is getting rid of 3 wells that they had no purpose anymore, and they had no ability to be treated. So that service wasn't there for our distribution system. And the AMI, automated metering infrastructure. This has been transformative among several departments, not only in Public Works, saving us time with our meter reading, but also in the finance department, now billing things monthly and more quickly and able to do final reads, et cetera, just remotely, without, again, having staff involved in the meter reading itself. 34 water main breaks were down from past years, but we're still a little bit over average. And we'll kind of get into that when we get into the water fund projects. In fiscal year 2025, some of our highlights will be, again, delivering that high service level. We're going to flesh out and fill out our proposed organizational chart and hire for that deputy director position to, again, achieve some of those board goals and reallocate duties among our department to be more resilient. And then pursuing accreditation. You've heard from accreditation in the police department. The American Public Works Association, that's APWA, has an accreditation program in place. We know our staff have been working very diligently. They are polite and professional. And this is kind of the back of the house kind of work in terms of getting our policies in line, our safety procedures, so well documented to, again, memorialize the excellent public service that we expect from our employees year after year after year. And then, last but not least, of course, is our $7.6 million CIP project schedule. There'll be a lot to manage. You're going to hear more about that in the slides ahead. Happy to entertain
Any questions of Dave? You're off
Nope.
the hook?
Thanks. All right, that's the end of the general fund. Any final general fund questions? All right, let's move it through. We're going to the motor fuel tax fund. Anne Marie.
So the motor fuel tax fund, then this fund is the fund that we record all of the motor fuel tax that we receive from the state, both the regular 19 cents as well as the additional 19 cents that was implemented a few years ago. It's distributed per capita, so we once again base the revenues on those IML estimates. The only expenditure you see in this fund is a transfer out, and in 2025, the transfer out is the Build Illinois bonds that we've been receiving over a number of years, and that was transferred out to the CIP fund to fund the 83rd Street project. And then there's a transfer to the general fund of the regular MFT revenues that we utilize to partially fund the street operations within Public Works. Any questions?
Questions on MFT? All right, we'll keep moving. It's Hannah. Hannah, hello. Hannah and Claire. We'll talk about our hotel motel fund. Go ahead, Hannah.
All right. I am pleased to present an overview of the village's hotel motel fund. This fund is fueled by a 4% tax on our hotel motel stays within our boundaries. and it serves as a vital revenue source for promoting tourism in the village. Over the years, we've seen a steady growth in revenue in the Hotel Motel Fund, and the projections indicate there's going to be further increases in our coming years. Our efforts in community engagement have borne fruit with significant improvements in communication and interaction rates across various platforms. Through initiatives like the Oak Leaf, our increased social media presence, and the updated village website, we've strengthened our connection with residents. While we celebrate these achievements, we recognize that there's always room for growth. This year, we're embarking on a comprehensive review of the village's overall marketing and advertising strategy. Our goal is to encourage more people to shop, dine, play, and stay at the village, maintaining our esteemed status as the #1 hotel community in DuPage County for occupancy rate and revenue per available room. Our biannual community survey is expected to be sent out to residents this spring, and the annual Oak Leaf, which is typically in mailboxes in June, will include a reminder to participate in this survey. We expect to close the survey at the end of June, which will allow enough time to prepare and present those findings to the board for any fall strategic planning sessions. Additionally, we are also exploring ways to enhance community spotlights and integrate more business features in our communications channels. With over 500 businesses in Burr Ridge, we are currently exploring ways in which we can feature our businesses and ensure that the process is fair and equitable to all of our businesses. Looking ahead, we're focused on maintaining our status as a top hotel community and showcasing the vibrant community and businesses that contribute to making Burr Ridge special. Before I hand it off, any questions for me?
No, but there should be an observation here that the Hotel Motel Fund apparently is very healthy. You can see the numbers. It's also a reason why we need to continue to beat the drum about the state getting rid of the designation of home rule versus non-home rule communities, because we are second-class citizens, as are 80% of the municipalities in the state of Illinois, because the Springfield tells us how to spend our money, which we know is a bad formula. We know how to spend our money, Springfield doesn't. But look how this fund is growing. Evan, do you have some sense, are we back? Have we recovered from COVID?
This is record revenue 3 years in a row, so yes.
Yeah. So this is one of the very good things about Burr Ridge. We're a small community with 5 hotels. There's actually market room for another one, probably. And this is also one of the reasons to continue to advocate for the legislature to get rid of the designation of non-home rule communities. I just wanted to make that little speech at this point. So thanks a lot, Hannah.
I just wanted to add, for the benefit of the residents, I wanted to ask you a question. So the special events, that includes the concerts and all the fun stuff we have in the village,
Yes.
right? So
I don't
that
want to steal Claire's thunder.
Sorry?
I don't want to steal Claire's thunder.
Okay.
So if there's no other questions, I can.
Perfect.
I'll pass that off to Claire and let her take over for special events.
Wonderful.
With the support and guidance of Trustee Mattal, we had a successful 2023. Almost 10% of the revenue in the Hotel Motel Fund was from sponsorships and ticket sales at village events. Armed Forces Day brought in the esteemed Brigadier General Martin C. Young as the keynote speaker, representing Darien's 416th TEC Army Reserve. The concerts on the Village Green expanded to include an opening band for the last 2 shows and increased community sponsorship. The Village of Burr Ridge partnered with the Mecca Center to host Mecca Move's 5K Walk, Run, and Roll, bringing in over $10,000 for HCS Family Services. The Taste of Burr Ridge captured more car show attendance by moving the event's start times closer together. Deck the Green had a record attendance. The Village Green is a beautiful space to gather for an event. Patrons want to come out for Mayor Grasso's lighting of our spectacular tree. And the temperature this past year was perfect. Now shifting to this coming season. I am thankful for the collaboration from Trustee Mattal for opportunities to expand. The Secretary of State event now offers appointments via our website, eliminating long wait times. We have also collaborated with the State Treasurer's Office, allowing patrons assistance in searching for unclaimed money. Armed Forces Day has been completely reimagined to further incorporate children and families. The event will now be celebrated at Village Center on the Village Green the evening before Armed Forces Day from 5 to 7. The West Suburban Concert Band will perform. The event will kick off with the presentation of the Jack Schaus Patriot Award. Activities include letter writing to our armed forces, Uncle Sam the Stilt Walker, face painting, and the red, white, and blue express train. Concerts on the Green will span 8 weeks, and we will host more sought-after bands to increase concert attendance and community sponsorship opportunities. I am adding a summer concert market on Thursdays before our concerts, which will take place in the new entertainment district. The car show and taste have been moved to Saturday, August 17th. The car show will start at 11 and the taste will start at 12 noon. This is expected to increase awareness and attendance at both events. The taste is family-focused and has an enhanced kids' corner from noon to 5. This year, we will partner with iHeartRadio. Additionally, we have secured a premier headliner band to close out the day. The Mecca Moves 5K Walk, Run, and Roll partnership will continue and is expected to grow beyond last year's 300+ participants. It will take place on Saturday, September 28th. Deck the Green is a partnership with the Village Center. I am working with our Public Works Department to create a custom light switch for our tree lighting ceremony. I want to make a special mention this year. We will host the biannual Burr Ridge Gala for staff, elected officials, and volunteers, tentatively scheduled for November. We will be adding a charitable component to this event. We are excited for a great 2024, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Any questions?
I just want to applaud Claire and Hannah. Hannah started with the special events, but Claire has taken over, and she's very diligent, very creative, and willing to explore new ideas, and she comes up with something new every year. The village residents are in for a real treat. We have a very nice lineup of events, which are getting better and better every year. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Anything else? All right, hearing none. Go over to the Downtown Business District Fund. You want to do it, Anne Marie? I'll do it, all right. So this is our Downtown Business District Fund. So this was actually started in FY 2022. This is something that is funded by a 1% downtown sales and hotel tax. This is only in the downtown of Burr Ridge, governed basically from Bridewell to County Line Road and everything north of Chasemore and Ambriance, so everything in the traditional downtown. As you can see, we've had a number of good years, and sales tax continues to grow, and the hotel tax as well continues to be a good source of revenue for this fund. I do want to note there will be about $2 million in ending fund balance in this fund by the end of FY 2025. There's about $1.4 million in it now. 2 notes, the Economic Development Committee is currently drafting rules under the chairmanship of Trustee Schiappa, governing the expenditure of funds collected in the Downtown Business District Fund. We're beginning to get requests from businesses and property owners about how to put this money back into use in our downtown. Again, it can only be used in the downtown, so there's a limited number of payers, but also a limited number of beneficiaries that could be available. Additionally, this is something that Trustee Smith had requested, that we put some money into this fund as a expenditure item this next year, just as a note. We had not done that at this point, but that was something that he asked that I specifically bring up at this budget meeting, is to have some, call it a general number for planning purposes going forward as to expend some of these funds. Not all, but some. This one has no immediate goals, so we'll stop there. Any questions on this item?
So this hotel tax number, that's only for the one hotel that's in the business district, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, we have 5 hotels, but 4 of them are on the DuPage side, which is not in the downtown. So when you look at this hotel tax number, that's only for the Marriott that's in the downtown. Okay.
All right, we'll move to the Capital Improvements Fund. We're gonna have Anne Marie and Dave both talk about this, first from a financial perspective, but then just doing a very high-level review of the CIP, which you've already heard before.
Okay, so the capital improvement fund, the revenue sources, most of them come from other funds or from one-time grants or bonds or anything like that that we would receive or issue. The 2025 revenue budget, the $1.249 million, is made up of $785,000 grant for the Elm Street culvert project, and then the $690,000-ish that I talked about earlier of RBI bonds that we're transferring from the MFT fund to the capital improvement fund to fund that the 83rd Street project.
Just let me interject there because Burr Ridge has been the topic of a couple of both Congressman Caston and Senator Duckworth, both whose offices were helpful in getting that amount of money for us for the culvert project. So they have used Burr Ridge as an example of how they can work together with local communities to get available monies from Washington to have these type of projects completed. We were the beneficiaries of the good work that both offices did for Burr Ridge.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a good point. On the next slide, you'll see the, as described a little bit in draft at February 12th Village Board meeting. We went through some of these projects at that time. You've heard 83rd Street will be funded by Rebuild Illinois Bond Fund and a little bit by the MFT, as you read about in the resolution earlier today. And that goes all the way from South Frontage Road to the end of our jurisdiction of 83rd Street at County Line Road. So the entirety of 83rd Street in our DuPage County area, that's a resurfacing project. And Elm Street culvert, we've heard a lot about over the years. That's going to greatly expand the culvert pipe just south of Elm School to greatly decrease the amount of flooding on Elm Street right there at that school crossing. The annual road program we just saw earlier tonight, we awarded the contract for that. That's not only resurfacing through Cambridge Estates, Cambridge Estates, Arrowhead, and Forest Edge, but also includes crack sealing and pavement marking preventative maintenance projects. 79th Street is a two-part project. The first part on the south is removing and replacing the asphalt pathway and regrading with a new concrete path. The north side is a new connection between Chase Moore and the connection at Woodside Lane. The asterisk next to that is to highlight that we think it is well qualified for an Investing Cook grant program. The Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways, through their MFT allocation, then makes available funds. We've applied for the IIC Investing Cook program before. We think this one's got a strong chance, so we're going to go forward with that. And then concert stage replacement has just reached the end of its useful life programming for that replacement project. Questions?
Anybody? No?
And then just one note, the Stormwater Fund has been collapsed this year, and all those projects will be tracked out of this fund going forward. We used to just transfer money there, now we'll transfer money here, just to make it simpler.
Okay.
All right, moving ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, towards the end.
5 more slides.
Okay, this is the water fund. Water fund's an enterprise fund of the village. It's operated to produce a profit or to self-serve itself. It doesn't get funded by any other funds. Revenue should match expenditures. Revenues are based on the results of the rate study that we recently did, and we'll be using that rate study for the next few years to devise the revenue budget in the water fund. The commodities amount that you see there, which is the largest expenditure category, is the water that we buy from Bedford Park and then sell to our residents and other water customers. You see a significant draw on fund balance, and that is to fund projects within the fiscal year. The rate study included those capital projects, so our rates are set to cover the cost of those projects without having to issue any debt. So all of our projects within the water fund are cash financed. The transfer that you see there to the general fund on this next page at the bottom, That is related to the IT function being within the general fund now. So a transfer is made from water and from the sewer fund to the general fund to cover the cost of IT services provided to the water fund. On the next page, this is just an analysis that was put together that shows that even with the rate study that we did and the increases that we may have had to have factored into our rates, we are still one of the lowest municipalities in the area when it comes to the amount per 1,000 gallons that we charge for water.
Yeah, and it's important to get that out too, because people do call about their water bill, and we try to tell them how well Burr is doing compared to others.
Yeah.
So it's important to get that information out. Thank you.
Some highlights of the water fund. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the hydraulic system model was, but the water rate study was implemented, and we implemented the findings of that. And like I said, the rates that were defined in that study define our revenue going forward. The AMI project was completed. Staff in Public Works and Finance worked significantly, a lot of hours, working really hard to get that off the ground. I think we're down to like 50 units or 50 residences that aren't being picked up through the radio read, which is a great percentage, and we're going to continue to work on those. We're going to be able to read down to the gallon eventually, which is really going to help our residents and help us tell our residents when they have unexpected large water usage, which will save them on water bills, save us on time servicing those customers. So that was a really good project. And I think, Dave, you kind of covered the other ones, but if you want to cover these last 3, 24, because they're actually capital projects.
Well, sure. So really, as part of that hydraulic study that you mentioned, that was a 4-part study. It identified everything within our water distribution system, from the pump center to the service lines, that found where the pinch points were, fire flows were deficient, concentration of water main breaks, et cetera, that all kind of drove the next things, such as the well systems we found were just outmoded. They just cannot provide the kind of flow or treatment water, treated water to our distribution system. So we've decommissioned those because we have the interconnect. That's an additional one now, an enhanced one thanks to the Illinois Tollway over by the mile-long bridge. And the last one is a leak detection and valve assessment. This is just a routine maintenance program to ensure that we're not losing water, unbilled water below ground from a leaky main that we just can't detect above surface, or leaky valve or something like that. We're losing that revenue, losing that water. In FY 2025, you heard a little bit more about this too at the February 12th board meeting and draft. The Woodview Estates Water Main Replacement Project is projected for construction this fall. That's really kind of everything north of Gregford Road to 55th Street on the kind of that east side. That was one of those projects identified by this water study that just had insufficient capacity up in that part of the neighborhood, up in that part of the village, and inadequate redundancy. So this project, we're in coordination with Hinsdale on different options. We hope to have that under construction this fall. Pump center controls, we heard about that SCADA, this supervisory control and data acquisition, remotely accessing our pump center facility. The software and interconnects to the pump center are really on a sole source basis right now, so we're going to modify that to enhance our security level 2 at the pump center. And then the painting, rehabilitation of that south water tower to bring it up to standards. It's been 25 years since it was rehabilitated, and it really is a key part of our water distribution infrastructure. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
Yep.
Dave, how old is the water system in Woodview that's getting replaced?
Woodview Estates was 1964, 65. It's a little bit around the same age as like Carriageway, but it had wells and well water up in that area way back when. There was an old well system.
Okay.
There's a water main being replaced that was a pressurized line from the well that goes behind homes on Tomlin Drive that it still exists. It's still pressured today, but it's old,
right,
as we mentioned, and it's really going to become a liability. Right.
And Carriageway is scheduled to get.
Carriageway is number 2.
Number 2.
So the area of Woodview Estates was prioritized because it had inadequate fire flow up on the far north end, over by the Tartan Ridge area. Carriageway has enough redundancy. We have a good valve system through there, Yes, we get 5 main breaks in that neighborhood, but we get in there, we get them done quickly, and everybody's back up.
Okay.
It really is becoming, yeah, that's why we prioritized our projects that way.
Great, thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
2 more funds and we're done. So the sewer fund operates much like the water fund. It's an enterprise fund, wants to break even within the fund. The charges for services are the revenues that are generated through the water bills. The charges are based upon usage of water, and those were adjusted as part of the rate study also. The transfer out at the bottom that you see there is also related to the IT spending that occurs within the general fund that services the sewer fund. There's not a lot of capital in here. I'm not sure if is there a list on the next page of what it is? Or
There is not. There are just 2 lining projects, which are not
more
routine, but
maintenance than,
they're
yeah.
fairly everyday. So
Both of these funds have sufficient fund balances, healthy fund balances that we're able to use going forward. The last fund is the police pension fund. Just a couple items to note. The employer contributions are based upon the levy, which is actuarially determined on an annual basis. It is based upon the recommended contribution now as opposed to the minimum, the statutory minimum that we used to do. Included in that $1.3 million is an additional one-time payment of $200,000 that the board had authorized as part of the policy modification that was approved. The employee contributions are the contributions made by the members of the pension fund that are currently working for the village. They contribute 9.91% of their non-overtime salary each pay period to the pension fund. Pension payments are the payments that we make to both our retired and disabled members of the police pension fund. Those do grow every year per state statute. And the other expenses that you see there are related to investment management fees, the outsourcing of the administration of the pension fund to Lauterbach and Amen, as well as audit and actuarial fees.
you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So take the interest line. So the legislature last year, maybe, or the year before, effective for last year, consolidated the 36 pension funds in the state down to 1, I think it is, right?
One.
And so some of the mayors, some other organizations that I belong to as a mayor of this village, have been asking in their various villages, are we seeing a benefit? That is to say, the idea of the consolidation of those funds was to have better performance. Are we seeing better performance and less fees?
I'm going to say we're seeing less fees, absolutely. I can't really comment on the performance. I think there's been so much up and down with the market that the funds might not be performing as initially forecasted, but definitely with less fees. That interest amount you see there is just interest. We don't budget for realized or unrealized gains because we don't really know that they're going to happen and they're hard to predict. So that is truly just the income that is earned on those fixed income increments that are part of the portfolio.
Right, and I guess I just staring at one number here. For actual fiscal year 2022, there's over $1 million in interest there. Do you know why that was?
So I believe that at that time, that was before IPOPIF, which is the new fund, we had a heavier presence in the bond market than we currently do. So the interest that we received was higher than your realized and unrealized gains that you would get by the buying and selling of equities or equity mutual funds. And we can do further research on that, Mayor, if you'd like us to do and give you some more information.
Maybe as we go on and after we get past the budget. But as we go into the year, I'd like to somehow try to track, are we getting good performance for this fund?
Yep, and we'll put something together.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we should kind of explore the fees that were charged and are being charged. And if we don't have as large a holding in bonds, which is fine, but then the overall portfolio performance has also gone down.
Right.
And the equities have done very well since 2022 and 2020. Last year, they really did well, but
Right.
we don't see that reflected in the numbers at the bottom.
Yes, we will definitely look into that and put something together.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, you did it. You heard the whole budget. Discussion at this point, again, the next budget discussion is March 25th at 6:30 if you need it. This is your last opportunity to talk about the budget in terms of changes you want to make. I would recommend if we're going to talk about any changes, though, we need to do that tonight as a starting point. I do want to remind the board once again, as we did at the beginning, that the budget does not reflect a loss of $200,000 in revenue from the general fund. If we want to talk more about that, we can. Staff can provide some recommendations as necessary, but at this point, it is your budget, and we're open for discussion. Thank you.
Anybody, any of you three have a question right now? Joe, any questions?
I'm good, boss.
Okay, I don't have any questions either, and I'm going to ask you, the trustees, to let me know if you have some questions after tonight, because I'll be considering whether or not to even hold a March 25th meeting. So we'll see. Okay, but if you have questions after tonight, let me know.
I just have some comments.
Sure.
You know, I want to congratulate Evan and all the department heads for putting together a well thought out and thorough budget for us to review and for the public to review. I just want to make note that, you know, our village isn't getting younger. We're getting older. We have water systems from the 60s that need repair and replacement. We have older homes in this area that people are buying, you know, going through families moving in and moving out and just updating those homes. And, you know, with the older community, our expenses go along with it. And that's something that, you know, I can see we're not going into any debt because we do have the funds, but I want to make sure that we always have those funds. And that's something I'd like to do by bringing tax-generating businesses here to the village versus imposing more taxes on the residents.
Right, and you specifically will have that opportunity as the chair of economic development, because what will be coming before you is starting with the Plan Commission first, of course, and I'll have a comment or two in my remarks, but both TCF and the CNH properties are the economic future of the village in
Yes.
conjunction with the village center, and those two projects will be right front and center by the summertime. So that's good timing there also. I also want to congratulate Evan and staff for putting the budget together in the manner in which it is. It's much easier to understand.
Yes.
And I'm glad he had the idea, which I fully support, of sitting down with each of the trustees in advance, not trying to have you digest it all in one meeting or two meetings, and go over all these different funds which are required by state law, and how we can interact with those funds and still meet the needs of the village. And then finally, one thing that I think only Burr Ridge is in an exclusive club of one. I still think that we remain the only municipality north of I-80 that is debt-free. Someone asked, Mayor asked me the other day, what was our bond rating in Burr Ridge? And I said, 0, because we don't have any bonds. I don't know how long that's going to be able to be maintained, but we should remain, and you should remain proud as a board for having no debt in this village at this time. So with that, I don't think there's any more need to discuss the budget.
Mayor, I'd like to.
Sure,
Mayor, I'd like
go ahead,
to say
Joe.
one thing. I would like to thank Evan Walter and his team. In the last few years, while we've watched him build a team that wants to work together, that wants to make Burr Ridge number one, beside the guidance that you've given him, Mayor, I think that Evan and his team have done off the charts. Having the structure to come to each one of us early, spend an hour and a half each one of us, letting ask all those questions, getting down to the extreme details, I thought that was just phenomenal. I can't thank Evan, you and your team, can't thank you enough. So I really appreciate it. I've been around for a while, but This is probably the best, well done, as everyone's stating it. Congratulations.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. And Anita?
I want to congratulate Evan and the team for doing such a job, and the finance team for putting together this marvelous budget. And I can't believe you're saving money on the finance department, but they've done such a nice job. It's very easy to understand. So I appreciate that. Also, I wanted to congratulate the village for presenting a balanced budget. Our property tax has been level for the past 3 or 4 years, 3 years. The percentage of the tax being charged is low. In fact, all of you should look at your property tax bill in May, and you will see that the village of Burr Ridge only charges 1.5% of your entire bill. So it's really good for the excellent roads we have, the great events we have, the amenities we provide. We really have a very special place in Burr Ridge. So I want to thank all of you for making that possible.
Thank you. All right, then we don't have to, obviously, we're not going to act on the budget tonight. We cannot, we have to have more meetings. But with that, we're done with this. When that will take us to public comment. I know there are a number of people here, maybe with the same theme for public comment. Let me just remind those that are here for public comment that you have up to 5 minutes. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I will enforce it if people go abuse it. And there isn't anything the board can do tonight in reaction to public comment. Public comment is just that. It's public comment. And there will be no actions taken by the board one way or the other on any items that are brought up during public comment. So first of all, how many are here on your issue? Who's with you here? Okay, so then we put your hands down to who has a different public comment they'd like to make on a different subject. We might as well get that person or persons done rather than have them wait. Is there anyone else? Okay, then please introduce yourself. We're now at item 9, public comment. Please introduce yourself, and then you have the floor.
Before you count my minutes, I just want to point out some logistics. I have a group of people that we already signed up to speak, so if we can go in that order, and then anybody who wants to speak after that, of course, this is public comments, so they are allowed to do that. So if I want to just let everybody know to follow what we have written here.
Yeah, what I would only encourage, and I can't stop it, of course, but I'd only encourage you to not have the same message every time for the same reason. We'll get it after 2 or 3 or 4 times. However, if there is a group of you that want your name as part of a public record for being present here and wanting to speak on the same issue or show support in the same issue, we will take your name and make it part of the record if that's what you want. But I'd like not to have repetition of more than a few. But
sure
but if people insist on speaking, they will be allowed to speak, of course.
Wonderful.
All right? Just respect the board's time, and we respect yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Board. I had the pleasure of speaking to you earlier and to Evan and Tony. So thanks for taking the time, and thanks for inviting us to speak here in front of everybody.
Could we have your name, please?
My name is Nizam Khatib. The last name is spelled Khat, T as in Tom, I, B as in boy. As a resident of our beloved city, I stand before you today with a heavy heart. For too long, we have witnessed the devastating consequences of conflict, particularly the devastation on Gaza. The images of innocent children being pulled from the rubble of their homes, hospitals, schools, and places of worship are etched into our collective consciousness, serving as a stark reminder of the inhumane toll of this genocide committed by the Israeli occupying forces. The loss of life of innocent civilians before October 7th, on October 7th, and after October 7th are a very sad tragedy. We cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering of our fellow humans. We cannot remain silent in the face of such injustice. It is incumbent upon us as representatives of our community to take the stand for peace and humanity. I urge each and every one of you to support a ceasefire resolution. This is not a matter of politics or ideology. It is a matter of basic human decency. Every life lost, every child orphaned, every family torn apart is a tragedy that we have the power to prevent. We need to recognize that there is grave injustice against Palestinians since 1948 by Israel on Gaza and the West Bank. Many United Nations resolutions have declared Israel as an illegal occupier of the West Bank and Gaza. Many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have declared Israel as an apartheid state, worse than that was happening in South Africa. And recently, the World Court of Justice accused Israel of plausible genocide. In addition, several Jewish organizations, including Jewish Voices for Peace, and if not now, have stood up against the genocide committed by Israel. So far, since October 7th, over 30,000 civilians have been slaughtered in Gaza. More than half are children. Over 70,000 are severely injured. People of Gaza are dying from starvation and lack of medical supplies. Israel has blocked all entrances to Gaza, preventing any real aid from entering. This war on Gaza is not a war of equal. It is a war of the most powerful against the powerless. Israel, with its most sophisticated tanks, smart missiles, highly equipped soldiers, and the most powerful air force, shooting and unloading 2,000-ton bombs against resistance hiding in tunnels with minimum fighting power. Therefore, there has been immeasurable devastation and death toll inflicted on innocent civilians. Gaza now looks uninhabitable. By passing a ceasefire resolution, we send a powerful message of solidarity, of compassion. We demonstrate our commitment to the principles of peace, justice, and dignity for all. We show the world that even in the midst of conflict, we choose empathy over apathy, compassion over indifference. Let us not allow the voices of the oppressed to go unheard. Let us stand together in support of those who have suffered unimaginable loss and devastation. Let us be the voice of reason and compassion in a world too often consumed by violence and hatred. I implore you to vote in favor of the ceasefire resolution. Let us be on the right side of history, on the side of peace, on the side of humanity. Our request from Burr City Council, is to pass a ceasefire resolution and then pass it on to the elected officials in Congress and the Senate. That is not asking much and will carry so much weight. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Could you
My
please
na-
sign your name on
Yes.
the pad, please, and let me know
You
your
need
name?
to say my name or just?
Yes, if you could please also say it. Thank you.
My name is Samer Ode. I have been part of the Burr Ridge community for more than 15 years. I deeply appreciate the diversity and the characteristics of this community and the inclusiveness atmosphere we face daily. I've been to this building many times on business purposes, and I can attest to how much professionalism and courtesy I received from the board here and from the other staff. I would like to address the City Council regarding the introduction of a permanent ceasefire resolution for Gaza. Although some may look at this as a symbolic, it is truly not. Its significance goes beyond symbolism. Its implication extends far beyond mere representations. This resolution serves as a concrete reflection of this board's recognition of its community's pain and suffering, and its commitment to uphold human rights irrespective of one's background, color, or geographic origin. Regardless of your political view, if this matter is a federal or local issue, it's all about humanity. Our direct link to the federal government goes through you, our elected officials. We ask the board to adopt the resolution, approve it, and pass it to Springfield, to the office of the President of the United States. We just pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States with liberty and justice for all. If we pledge for all, it must be for all. Justice shouldn't be selective. We must stand up for those worlds. I recently delivered a lecture on international laws of warfare to my graduate students within a specific focus on the Geneva Convention and the Hague Treaties, which explicitly prohibits attacks on civilians, women, children, hospital, medical personnel, and places of worship. During the lecture, my students faced difficulties in grasping the foundation principle that underlies those laws and their application. It is disheartening to witness that despite those strong provisions outlining this legal framework, war crimes, genocide, ethnic cleansing persist in places like Gaza. Mr. Mayor and respected trustee, our inaction is saying it is okay to use our tax money for systematically blowing up homes, destroying the infrastructure, bomb schools, refugee camps, churches, and hospitals. By remaining silent, we not only fail to uphold our moral obligations, but we also become complicit in this genocide. It is challenging to reconcile the enjoyment of our well-prepared meal 3 times a day, while we know that there's millions of people in Gaza are facing starvation. Let's ensure our city is on the right side of history. We must join cities like Chicago, Bolingbrook, Detroit, Atlanta, Seattle, Oakland, San Francisco in passing ceasefire resolutions. We kindly request a meeting with each one of you individually to discuss the progression of this resolution for your consideration. By adopting this resolution, we reaffirm our commitment to justice and the fundamental principle of human dignity. Let us demonstrate to the world that Burr Ridge stands as a beacon for moral strength, dedication to the core value of individuals. Thank you.
Good evening. My first name is Monsef, M-O-U-N-C-E-F, and last name El-Alamy, E-L-A-L-A-M-Y. I'm a Moroccan American, and I moved here 30 years ago from Casablanca, Morocco, where I was born and raised, to pursue better education and opportunity. I'm an IT director for clouds and data centers with 25 years experience supporting complex IT infrastructure and networks. I worked for companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Nokia, and one of the largest law firms in the world, Sidley Austin, supporting over 4,000 attorneys. 3 reasons why I love America. Freedom. I have the freedom to do what I want, believe in what I want, and say what I want, and to do so without persecution. For Palestinians, this is not true for many decades. Diversity. We are a melting pot. Every nation, race, and color is represented in America. The diversity of every man, woman, and child is what makes our country strong. Palestinians are treated as second-class citizens in Israel and constantly humiliated and denied their basic rights. Opportunity. This is the land of opportunity. If you work hard enough and persevere through failures and setbacks, you can still achieve success in the United States. The spirit of America lives, and we see it every day with hardworking people who are out there wanting a better life. Palestinians, unfortunately, don't have any of these opportunities and live in an open-air prison for decades with no future. What we're seeing every day in Gaza is devastating. We have seen reports of families eating leaves or animal feed, women giving birth to malnourished babies with no medical care, and children dying from malnutrition and dehydration. Babies are born and killed on the same day. Many innocent Palestinians have been killed by Israeli Defense Forces using weapons provided by the United States of America, the country I love. Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Our governments must do more to significantly increase the flow of aid, not send more bombs and military equipment to Israel. People in Gaza are starving. Conditions are inhumane, and our common humanity compels us to act immediately. Few days ago, over 100 Gazans, desperate for food, descended on aid convoys, only to be met with extensive gunfire by Israeli forces, killing them all. Don't let the fake news media convince you this is a war between Muslims and Jews. It is not. The level of casualties and scale of destruction in the occupied Gaza Strip is unprecedented. Countless lives have been shattered and ripped apart. With each day that passes, more lives are lost, and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is getting worse. Israel's ruthless bombardment continues to kill Palestinians in Gaza. At a staggering rate, over 28,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed in 4 months, and over 60,000 people have been wounded, including thousands left permanently disabled. Much of northern Gaza has been destroyed, and at least 75% of Gaza's entire population is now internally displaced. Gaza's healthcare system has been largely destroyed. The shockingly high death toll, widespread destruction, engineered hunger and malnutrition, deliberate denial of humanitarian aid as part of illegal siege, racist and dehumanizing rhetoric by Israeli officials, and the wider context of Israel's apartheid system are all proofs of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. In January 2024, the International Court of Justice ruled that there is a risk of genocide and ordered Israel to take measures to protect civilians. Meanwhile, the United States has abused its veto power to block the UN Security Council from calling for a ceasefire that could alleviate human sufferings in Gaza, help secure the release of hostages, and enable aid agencies to get life-saving aid, water, and medical supplies into the Strip. With no end in sight of the death and destructions we are witnessing in Gaza, now more than ever, humanity must prevail. Join me as fellow humans to demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dr. Rashid Abu Shinab. What we see now in Gaza is unprecedented. Over 32,000 Palestinians have died. 99.9% of those who died, non-Hamas. Over 2/3 of those 32,000 are women and children. Israel bombed hospitals, daycares, destroyed medical supplies, stopped all humanitarian aid. We're looking for a possibility of hundreds of thousands of children starving to death. Our government, on a national level, cannot be complicit in this genocide. We can pressure Israel to stop, but they're not listening. Israel increasing the aggression and no one else able to stop them. We have a solution, and the solution now, even in this room. We have been supplying Israel with our tax dollars, bombing Gaza, killing 32,000, and there is no end in sight. There are plans to provide Israel with more aid to increase this genocide. Our president visited the region, claiming he asked the Israeli government to stop the war. But on the other hand, he offered $10 billion military aid. So what would you do? Would you stop the war and stop this $10 billion, or you continue that? Israel is in violation of the war law. Stopping humanitarian aid is a violation. The bottom line, no more money to Israel. This money is our tax dollars. We can even use it for our local government here. The money is our tax dollars, and we need to cease fire now. We ask our local government in Burr to help us meet with our 6th District Congressman, Mr. Sean Gaskin. We tried to meet with Mr. Gaskin. He refused. But I remember when he first ran, he came in and shook hands. He sat down with us. He took pictures, and now he's nowhere to be found. His signs are all over the area here, and please think before you vote. Please think of Gaza. We ask you also to please reach to Senator Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth to order a ceasefire now and forever. We have people in Gaza who are suffering all the time. Gaza's children are just like our children. They all want to be doctors. They want to play basketball. They want to play tennis. They want to play PlayStation. They just don't want to be born and be killed the same day. Today is our first day of Ramadan. We all just ran here quick. We all grabbed a cup of water from the vending machine. We grabbed some dates, but people in Gaza don't have this opportunity. Gaza people do not have water. They are starving. Kids have 3 minutes to use the bathroom. 3 minutes. You have to shower, you can use 3 minutes max. Imagine you have a 2-year-old, you tell him, no, you have to wait for your turn. It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. And you have only 3 minutes to finish what you have to finish. So this is not humane. I remember when Russia invaded Ukraine. I remember the money was raised from the public to send to Ukraine. I was asked from my medical colleagues to support Ukraine. I remember blood donations and people in line to do that. No one I've seen or talked about ever asked us to do the same to Gaza. Israel and Hamas at war. So go at it. Do whatever you have to do, but leave the children alone. Leave the civilians alone. Open humanitarian support. In July 4th, 2022, Highland Park parade shooting. The government helped the shooter, and anyone helped him buy weapons be responsible. That is why we are here today in Burr Ridge. We are all responsible. Our tax dollars, throughout the sales tax, property tax, reaches the state, reaches the federal government to be distributed to help invaders in Gaza, killing children and women. We are responsible about that. We ask you to please order ceasefire now and forever in Gaza. Thank you.
We'll be speaking as a husband and wife.
Yes, we're a dream team.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Suzanne Akras, and I am your candidate for state representative for District 82, but in my daytime job, I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Syrian Community Network. We work with resettled Syrian refugees and other refugees who come through the U.S. State Department to come to Chicago, and Chicago being the welcoming city that it is. We offer many services to them to help them adjust to life in Chicago with jobs and ESL classes and so many other things so that they can thrive in the community. My husband and I have lived in Burr Ridge for almost 20 years now, and we're really proud to be Burr Ridgians, and it is, as you said, it is really a special place to live in. I stand here before you also as a recipient of one of the awards for UNICEF. UNICEF works with children who are victims of war, and in honor of that award, I feel I must come here and say a few words about the children of Gaza, and to stop this bombardment and to call for a ceasefire. I had the honor of traveling to Gaza in 2019 with my husband on a medical mission, and I went in as a translator. I'm not a physician. I went to translate, but boy, they knew English and French and Italian. They knew more than what most of us think that they know. And Gaza is really a beautiful place. It is the #1 exporter of strawberries and flowers to Europe. And I never tasted better strawberries, and I never smelled better flowers in my life. It puts our flowers to shame. So I really want to be here and express my support for the ceasefire and everything that my colleagues have said. I don't want to repeat all of the things that have been said. And early on, after October 7th, I had a talk with my husband, and I told him, we really need to do something, and you need to be there. His organization, he can talk about it, does medical missions into war zones such as Ukraine, Bangladesh. I had the honor also going to Bangladesh. I went to Greece for the Syrian refugees. I went to Jordan. I went to Turkey. I've done much work in terms of refugee resettlement and refugee support at the international level. And I see the the desperation and the heartache from people who are displaced, who are victims of war. No one wants to flee. No one wants to flee their home unless they have to. And so I'm asking all of you to please support the ceasefire and put pressure on state legislators and our federal legislators to call for a ceasefire. And I'll let my husband continue.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak to you. My name is Zahir Sahloul. I'm a pulmonary and critical care specialist. I work at 2 hospitals. One of them is Christ Advocate Medical Center in Oak Lawn, and the other one is a small community hospital called St. Anthony's in Chicago. And you can imagine the difference between a tertiary center like Christ, where you have all resources and best specialists and best technology, and St. Anthony's, where the community is different, the life expectancy is less than the life expectancy around Oakland, and the resources are limited. So in Chicago, we have inequities in healthcare, but also in the rest of the world, we have that even worse, especially in disaster areas. Before Gaza Medical Mission, which I was there a month ago for 2 weeks, I went to Ukraine 3 months ago, and that was my 4th trip to Ukraine. And as you can imagine, the impact of the war on civilians, on especially children, is horrible. Every few hours you have a siren, you have to go to the basement to hide from a missile attack, and you don't know where that missile will hit. But in Gaza, it's a totally different situation. It's the worst humanitarian crisis in our lifetime. And actually, if you want to pass this resolution, ceasefire resolution, or consider it, it's not a political ceasefire resolution. In my mind, this is a humanitarian ceasefire resolution. And whether this is happening in Gaza or Colombia or Mexico or Canada, it's the same. If you have large number of people, civilians, especially children, are being killed, I think we have to do something symbolic. And this is a symbolic ceasefire resolution. By the way, Senator Durbin has called for ceasefire. He's the first senator in all U.S. Senate to call for permanent ceasefire. I was his special guest in the State of the Union address just a few days ago, and we had a dinner with multiple senators and representatives. All of them are speaking about Gaza. And again, this is a humanitarian issue. It's a moral issue. And as Martin Luther King Jr. says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. 1 out of 100 children in Gaza have been killed. 1 out of 100, which is the equivalent of 500,000 American children being killed. I'm just going to mention a couple of stories about the children that I treated myself in Gaza. One of them, his name is Muhammad Khalil. I was in the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, and he was brought in a mass casualty event after a missile attack. And there were 32 injured people who flooded the emergency room. He was injured in his brain and his belly. We intubated him, we put him on the tube. We treated him on the floor of the emergency room because there were not enough space. Then he went to surgery. He had abdominal surgery. He never woke up. I took care of him in the intensive care unit. He had a brain death next day, and we had to send him to the morgue. We could not communicate with his family because there was no communication. So Muhammad Khalil is 12 years old. He's one of those 12,500, according to Haaretz, by the way, which is an Israeli newspaper, that were killed. And there are 67,000 who are injured. Half of them have severe or moderate injuries. I have a habit in war zones to ask children, what would you like to be in the future, Mayor? What would you guess the answer in Gaza?
Free.
Doctors. Doctors. I imagine that some of them will say martyr or fighter or jihadi. None of them said that. They said doctors. They want to serve their community and they respect healthcare workers, except for one child. He was in a displacement center, and he was 11 years old. And I asked him, what would you like to be in the future? And he said, what future? So I think it's important for us, those who have children and grandchildren, to make sure that every child, whether they are in Chicago or Ukraine or Colombia or Gaza, have some future. And I think this passing a resolution like this will be a strong symbolic gesture from us in Burr Ridge to the people in the world, not only in Gaza and Israel. By the way, we condemn the loss of any innocent life, whether it's in Israel or Gaza. Lives are equal. In the Islamic tradition, in the Christian tradition, in the Hindu tradition, in the Jewish tradition, every life is equal. And this symbolic gesture, I think, will give some assurances to our community that we respect our neighbors and we love our neighbors, and we do love this neighborhood. And also gives this gesture to the world that we care about what's happening in the rest of the world. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Leila Shakte. I turned 14 in 2 days. I live in Naperville, but I come here every Sunday in Mecca Center. It's like a mosque here. They also have a Sunday school, so I do go to the Sunday school there. Today, as you know, it's the first day of Ramadan, so Ramadan Kareem, everyone. Yeah, so I'm here to request a ceasefire resolution for the city of Burr simply because it's the right thing to do and to be on the right side of history. I go to Palestine every year, and this June I'll be there actually. And as you can tell, I'm a child like any other children that any of you have. I'm pretty sure you guys have kids. But because I'm Palestinian, because I love my country and defend it, I'm threatened every time I go there by the occupation and the IDF. Last year when I was there, I don't know if you guys all know what Jerusalem is. There's a mosque. It's very important to my religion. And I went there and I was kind of walking in the streets and I did look at an IDF soldier and he did point a gun at me. So I did see firsthand what it's like there. And not just that, but in checkpoints and borders, they investigate and question and separate families. Last year when I was also there, they did end up separating my family. Me, my mom, and my 3 siblings had to go on without my dad. He was left behind at the border, and same thing with my aunt and her kids. As of today, 31,000 Palestinians have been killed, and of those numbers, 12,000 have been children, and that's only in about 4 or 5 months. And as I'm speaking right now, the numbers are probably going up. A large number of those kids did die from starvation. Israel is not allowing food to enter to Gaza. They're using starvation as a weapon, basically. And that's why Joe Biden addressed in his State of the Union speech that he'll drop food from the air and from the sea. But they're literally dropping military food, and that's not enough for those kids. They're really malnourished. And they just need more than that, which is why we come and ask you for a ceasefire resolution to just stop the killing in general. A ceasefire resolution, it's really not politics. It's about standing against the erasing of my race, in other words, stopping genocide and the killing of children like me, like my siblings, my cousins and my parents, women like my Aunt Muna, she lives in Palestine with her kids and her husband. Children like my financially adopted brother. And if you don't know what a financially adopted child is, it's where you adopt someone to send them money and send them food. Right now, we're unable to send my financially adopted brother Muhammad any food because of the war that's going on. We're unable to send him money. And the last thing we know about him is that he lives in a tent with his grandma. A ceasefire in Gaza, it's not external relationships with other countries, it's a stand for humanity. And lots of big cities in the USA, I'm pretty sure someone said it before me, they approved of it, like Chicago and Detroit and Bolingbrook, not really a big city, but hundreds of other cities are moving to vote for the ceasefire too. Burridge needs not just to vote for a ceasefire, but to be an example of a community who cares about its residents, including a child like me who attends your schools. I know that you said earlier that you're not going to take any action for any public comments, but I really suggest this just because there's so many of us here that are trying. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Zenaid, and I've lived in Burridge for the last 25 years.
Could you please sign the
Yes.
sheet, please? And what was your last name? I'm sorry.
Zenaid. It'll be on here.
Thank you.
I was born in Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank in occupied Palestine. My first 10 years of life, I lived there, and I witnessed many, many injustices against Palestinians, Christians, and Muslims alike, but nothing like the atrocities faced by the people of Gaza. I'm here to request that Burridge pass a resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. I know full well that local government cannot enact foreign policy, but I also know that a message is necessary for the children of Gaza. Half of Gaza's population are children, and while every loss of life is tragic, and I mean every single human, children are especially precious and should be protected. Children in Gaza are suffering in horrific ways. The ramification of e-learning resulted in great decline in learning, rise in anxiety, increase in behaviors, and much psychological and emotional trauma. Those children here during e-learning were learning in safe, warm homes, and they still experienced all of those traumas. The children of Gaza have no schools and no homes. During their formative years, they've witnessed their homes being demolished, their schools destroyed, and they've been forced to live in conditions that have been described by organizations all over the world, World Health Organization, Human Rights, and UN, as catastrophic. In addition, they've witnessed their family members being butchered. Some have collected body parts of their parents, siblings, and friends to assure they receive proper burial. Those are the lucky ones, the ones that have not lost their lives or one to all of their limbs. Some have had amputations without anesthesia. The term WCNSF, Wounded Child No Surviving Family, has been coined by the UN to address this phenomenon. Some may think this is grotesque and graphic, but that's the reality of the children of Gaza. We as Americans speak of liberty, justice, equality, and happiness. Do we believe those ideals are just for us? Do we believe those concepts apply to certain classes and races? When we speak about human rights, do we believe every human on this planet deserves those rights? One example, Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. At the time of Patrick Henry's death, he owned over 100 slaves. Are our words just as hollow as his? When we speak of a moral high ground, are we hypocrites? If we mean liberty and justice for all when we cite the pledge, then we must declare a ceasefire. I'm requesting a permanent ceasefire because a temporary ceasefire would perpetuate trauma to the children that would just keep waiting for the next white phosphorus bomb, which is illegal, but we keep resupplying it anyway, or a bunker bomb, which we keep dropping on them. The settlers are blocking the aid trucks from entering Gaza and providing the children, while providing their own children with bouncy castles so that they are entertained while they're blocking the food trucks from getting in. They're also preparing feasts for their children, while just a few feet away, Gazan children are experiencing malnutrition, which is leading to cognitive disabilities, permanent disabilities. They're facing unsanitary conditions, which lead to disease. Malnutrition and disease lead to death. All this paid for with our tax dollars. We cannot in good conscience allow this to happen. I want to point out that President Biden is really proud of his 38,000 meals that he dropped. That's for 1.7% of the population, one meal for 1.7% of the population. And for some reason, he's able to deliver all of the missiles and weapons and bombs to Israel safely, but the food that he delivers to Gaza is falling into the Mediterranean Sea. And as children, adults as well, go to get it, swim out for it, it's a little too far for them to go out and get, but they attempt it anyway. Missiles are striking that food, so they're really not able to get it. Halfway there, their food, their only source of hope, is being blown up. That's the 38,000 meals that we've supplied. Also, some have drifted over onto the Israeli side. So how many of those 38,000 meals did they actually get? I don't know. Anyhow, please vote for a permanent ceasefire. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aya Ali. I'm a Burr Ridge resident and a fourth-year dental student at Midwestern University. I was born and raised in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, and I lived in Palestine for 4 years when I was younger. I'm here today as my family gathers on the dinner table, breaking their fast together since it's the first day of Ramadan. As they break their fast without me on the table, I think to myself, I wonder how the people in Gaza feel as they break their fast to animal feed without multiple family members of theirs on the table. And I say, as I say on the table, I also mean on the ground in the middle of a tent, as they have been displaced time and time and time again throughout this 156-day genocide. I ask myself, how would my family feel, or how would I feel if not only did they miss one person, but if our whole entire family was wiped out? How would I feel? How would our loved ones feel? I may be missing iftar with my family to stand before you today to convince you that a ceasefire is not only an expectation, but the bare minimum that we ask you as our representatives. We have watched children die of starvation within the last week or so, after 150 days, over 150 days of a genocide. And to add on to that, we watch babies that look like my nieces and nephews who have chubby cheeks and beautiful smiles and giggles when you look at them. And we see them wither away into skeletons. And we have to sit and watch this as we break our fast to a table full of food. And we sit here in guilt. And as a Palestinian, I sit in front of you, I stand in front of you, and I can't feel anything but guilt in my heart. Because as I stand in front of you today, I left Palestine on October 11th. On October 11th, I was leaving Palestine because I was there for my cousin's wedding. That was supposed to take place on October 8th. But I was also there on October 4th when Israeli settlers who were armed by the Israeli occupation forces and paid to attack my village shot my 15-year-old cousin. I was also there on October 6th when, as we were going home one night, my family and I were terrorized by those same Israeli settlers who were also, again, armed by Israeli occupation forces. And where does that armory come from? It comes from America. It comes from our tax dollars. And as an American, I was sitting in the car as an AK-47 was being pointed right at me, and I could do nothing. And those two things may have happened, and it was just it was the smallest experience that I could have experienced as a Palestinian compared to the 75 years of occupation that had been taking place. But for the first time, I experienced something that I truly felt was the Palestinian experience. And I felt that guilt again of how do I get to go back home to Burr Ridge and sit comfortably in my home as not only my brothers and sisters in Gaza are undergoing a genocide, but the West Bank, not too far away from that, are still under military occupation under a settler colonial state called Israel. This is not a problem that began in October 7th. And I think we've established that, and we've made that very clear from a lot of the speakers you've seen today. But I'm standing before you today to not only give you a personal perspective, but to allow you to just think. On October 11th, I left through the Jordanian border, and I left safely, thankfully. But that same exact day, I was watching videos as bombs were dropping on the Rafah border in Gaza, as American citizens were also trying to leave. So if I was in Gaza today, if I was in Gaza on October 11th, if any of these Palestinians sitting before you today were over there, would you care? Would you call for that ceasefire? Because I would hope that you would. And if you would you call, do you consider the Palestinians who are currently there and the over 30,000 Palestinians who have been killed just as human as you and I? Because in these last 156 days, when I came home to my comfortable home in Burr Ridge, I watched as my life as a Palestinian has been dehumanized left and right. And instead of being comfortable in my home in Burr Ridge, I felt like a stranger. I felt like I was in a place where I was not wanted. I felt like a lot of the people who looked at me and death stared me wished that they could kill me the way that my Palestinian brothers and sisters are being killed in Gaza. The same way in Plainfield, the 6-year-old boy was stabbed to death. because our representatives are not making it clear that we stand for Palestinian life. Because dehumanization of Palestinians has become far too common, that our own citizens, our own neighbors, our coworkers think that it's okay to dehumanize us. And so you calling for a ceasefire today may not end the genocide in Gaza, but it does set a precedent for every single Burr Ridge resident that you, every single one of you, does not stand for dehumanization of Palestinian life. Because I, as a Palestinian and American, I'm just as human as every single one of you, and I expect and I really hope that you see me that way as well. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Keisha Aziz.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Keisha Aziz. I need a mic, my voice is too low.
Thank you.
My name is Keisha, and I've been living in Burr Ridge for a little while now. I've been in Illinois my whole life, minus a few months. And born in California, raised in the cornfields over here. My family has enjoyed the comforts of our country, the comforts of going from one city to another city and feeling that the budgets are going to take care of them, that the mayors are going to look out for them. But my children don't feel that. I can't raise them that way. When I look at the flag and I say justice for all, there's no justice. We don't go to sleep happy because I hear a voice in my head that says, hey guys, this is Bassam from Gaza, and I'm still alive. It's day 150, day 157. Every day, every night, when we hear these messages from these Palestinians that are going through this trauma, we go to sleep crying. Our hearts are not at justice. Our homes aren't. Our families aren't happy anymore because we can't handle this. It's too inhumane. But we live here. We have budgets that are going in our direction. I saw we have a little extra, right? We're under the expenses. Congrats to each of you. That's a big thing for us, and we feel proud of that. But where's our money for our taxes going? It's not going for this. It's going to kill people. It's going to support them, making sure that they cannot go to bed full, that they can't see their parents and their children smiling and happy. It's taking away all of their sense of security. If I could ask you, I know you guys are all tired, it's been a long night, and I also know that you all look a little bit older than 23 age. But 23 years ago, for just a few minutes, our skyline in New York was destroyed. 2 buildings taken out in a few minutes. I think most of us can remember what we were doing that morning on September 11th. I can. I was driving my kids to school. I'm a computer teacher, and I've been teaching for about 15, 20 years. And as we were going to school, we wanted to know the weather, but we didn't hear it because all that was on was that there's a terrorist attack. Buildings were being destroyed. The planes flew and killed people, and we will never forget those few minutes in our history. Imagine over 3,700 hours, 3,700 hours of nonstop bombing from us. It's not just Israel. Who's Israel? They're nothing without us. It's you guys who are in this position. God gave you a pedestal and said, use it. Use your mind, use your money, use your hearts. Be humane. Stop our money from paying for this death. Be on the right side of history. I won't repeat everything that they said because there's a lot of things that they said in their speeches that I also wanted to say. But one of the numbers that I also wanted to put out there is 36 hospitals. Imagine Chicago has about 36 hospitals. There are maybe 6 left, but they're not functioning. They don't have anything to help the people. They don't have anesthesia. They don't have medicine, bandages. They're tearing things up so they can help themselves to continue their days. And the main thing that we can take from them is that they're not crying and fighting for something that we would do. Toilet paper. Do you remember just a couple of years ago? the fights in the grocery stores and the Walmarts for toilet paper because we were scared we might not have toilet paper? I was there. I watched 2 people have to get escorted from the store just down the street here because they thought they weren't going to get something like that. But the Palestinians, who, like she said, over 3,000, 30,000 meals were dropped from the U.S. so that we could say that we did some help, right? What did our help do? Are we those kind of people that will go and fight for the toilet paper? Or are we the type of people who will say, you know what, it's okay, we're here for you, we have some extra money, we have a position, we have a heart, and we will help stop. This is getting us nowhere. It's not killing the right people that are creating the terror in our homes. It's killing the civilians. It's killing the children and their families. It's wiped out all of their livelihoods. Where are they supposed to go? How do you even give somebody hope? And how do you stop them from growing up with a black heart? How do you? Maybe you say ceasefire. You say enough. We don't want to support this anymore. We don't support this. And you ask Mr. Biden to do more than what he's done with our tax money. Do things that you would feel proud of. And that when you do return to God and you do say, thank you for putting me on that pedestal and putting me in that warm bed and letting me see my grandchildren's smiles, when you thank God for putting you in a position that gave you the power to be on the right side of humanity, the right side of history, then you will be able to go to bed happy at night. And
Please
we will
wrap up.
too.
Please wrap up.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good evening. My name is Iyad Ilaga, E-L-A-G-H-A, originally from Palestine, Gaza, Khan Yunis city. I have been living in Illinois since 1994. I'm a father of 5 professional kids, husband with talented wife. My respected fellow communities members have been already touched on what is currently happening in Gaza Strip. However, I would like to educate the people here in this chamber on what led to October 7th. To do that, we have to start from the beginning. In the late 1800s, the Zionist political movement began to enforce its agenda to taking steps to force the inhabitants of Palestine off of their land, ultimately create the illegal state of Israel. Fast forward, the Nakba translate to catastrophe. On May 1948, the state of Israel was forcibly established through the British Empire, leading to displacement of millions of Palestinians in the occupied territories between the West Bank and Gaza Strip, and millions more forced to live as refugees all over the world. The United Nations Security Council has since adopted 131 resolutions directly addressing the oppression of the Palestinian people due to the Zionist agenda, such as returning Palestine refugees to their homes, calls for the withdrawal of Israel troops from the Palestinian occupied territories, calls on Israel to stop building settlements and condemning the Israeli deportations of Palestinians, and calls for their immediate return. The Israeli government refused to recognize the Palestine state and refused to comply with all the United Nations resolutions. So the event of October 7th is a continuation of the Zionist agenda. This is a dire situation because of my people in Gaza have been living in open air prison since 1967. As of today, more than 5,000 of my people, my family have been displaced. 148 of my people, cousins and relatives and cousins, have been murdered in the past 5 months. 19 have been kidnapped. 2 of them were born in America, and they are under the age of 18. With none of them having connection to any military groups, their only crime is that they are Palestinians. Therefore, I appeal to the respected Board of Trustees to pass resolution and call for immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you for listening.
For the remaining people who wants to speak, maybe if you want to line up. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ibrahim Saeed. I'm a 20-year-old college student who attends University of Illinois at Chicago. And more important,
Could you repeat your name?
sorry, my name is Ibrahim Saeed.
Thank you.
I'm a 20-year-old college student, and more importantly, I'm a citizen of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, do not mistake ignorance for neutrality. Neutrality is just an excuse for a lack of information and a lack of knowledge. In this current day and age, a lack of information is not a justifiable excuse for being uneducated on the problems that plague the innocence of the world. Let us not be ignorant in situations in which there is a clear wrong and right, where there is the oppressor and an oppressed, where there is the killer and the killed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the youth and the future of this country, and I speak on behalf of the youth and every single individual that is not blinded by the lies. We will continue to fight for Palestine till its liberation. We will continue to fight until justice prevails in Palestine. We will continue to demand a ceasefire. We will continue to speak out until Palestine is free. And mark my words, Palestine will be free. The world is waking up and change is inevitable. So I ask you, the Board of Burridge, let us be on the right side of history. Let us be the pioneers of a new world, a world of peace, a world where Palestinians roam their land freely. You know, I've heard many people tell me that these meetings won't affect international affairs, and I say to these individuals, these meetings are bricks that are building a new world, and let us do our duty and lay our brick down for a free Palestine. Let us vote for a ceasefire resolution. I will end off with one last saying, and I say this with my chest out and my head held up high under the protection of the First Amendment right, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
My name is Hamza Ahmed. Good evening, residents of Burr Ridge. My name is Hamza Ahmed, and I'm a student at the College of DuPage. You know, a couple of years ago in middle school, I learned about the Holocaust. I learned about how 6 million people were taken from their homes, stripped of their dignity, and how the world watched as an attempt to exterminate them from existence took place. I sat there wondering, how was it possible that the rest of the world would allow this to happen? How could it be that there was such a clear oppressor, but the oppressed remained voiceless? Never again. Never again. These are the words that were said in 1945. Those words gave me hope. They gave me a sense of relief that if anyone would ever attempt to commit such a crime ever again, us humans would join together and obliterate them. Never again. Those words were a lie. I now understand how people can sit back and watch atrocities like the Holocaust take place and move on with their day as if nothing happened. I now understand that the plea of the oppressed can just be ignored and can be seen as just the way things are. I am angered, I am frustrated, and I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed to say that I am from a country that is funding the genocide of the Palestinian people. As we claim to be the enforcers of justice all around the world, as we claim to be the enforcers of democracy all around the world, we support and fund this terrorism that is taking place against the Palestinian people. We support the destruction of hospitals, schools, the destruction of the most basic essentials to a society. We are now supporting the starvation of more than 2 million people. Our tax money is being used to destroy and kill the people inside the open air prison called Gaza. We must stand up as a people to put an end to this terrorism. In the modern day, where information is at our fingertips, lack of knowledge is not an excuse for taking a neutral stance or staying out of it. This is why I'm here today in front of all of you, asking this board to stand on the right side of history. Again and again, this is being said. Please stand on the right side of history, to stand with the oppressed and not the oppressor. Call for a ceasefire now. We need that resolution. As our children carry book bags, the children of Gaza carry the remains of their siblings. As our children learn to write their names, the children of Gaza learn to write their names on their hands, their feet, their shoulders, so that they may be recognized after their bodies are obliterated and blown to pieces. If these facts do not shake you to your core and ignite a fire in you to stop what is happening, then I recommend that you see a therapist, because something is wrong with you. I'll end off with one last saying. I say this with my chest held high. I say this with my chest out and my head held high. Under the protection of the First Amendment, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, and peace be upon each and every single one of you and all of you present here tonight. I want to first thank each and every single one of you for taking the time to hear what the village of Burr residents have to say, especially to each and every single one of you holding these seats that you've worked so hard to hold.
Would you please state your name?
My name is Amina Aziz.
Thank you.
And I have been a resident of Burr for a few years now. I am also a graduate business student. Well, I've graduated already now. But I'm not here to talk about who I am. I'm not here to repeat so many of the things that you guys have heard. I'm here to honestly think about how each of you must feel. Because it's not easy to hear the things that you've heard tonight, or that you've probably heard throughout all of these days that such atrocities have been happening. You're here trying to make sure that you're doing the best that you can for the village of Burr and for these citizens who you know each of your daily situations, each of your daily decisions directly impact. And unfortunately, you've had to hear that quite a few of your own residents here have very strong opinions and very traumatic stories that they wish they never had either. And the question truly is, what can I do? What should I do? And the fact of the matter is that we all turn to you guys as our leaders. We're not here preaching hate. We're not here against any people except for those who go out of their way to take away the rights of others. And we're not even saying go after them. We're asking you in the most peaceful and outspoken way that we can, because you allow us, because you have minds wide enough to allow us to come to you and say, we are a people living here in America with the ability to live under the different guidelines that you guys yourselves put forth for our lives, and with the representation that you guys are able to put forth with each of the congressmen and with the senators. We're asking you to do something that's quite difficult in a country that so vastly supports another state that is very much so committing to genocide. However, if you have not been exposed to this fact, or so much of the media that shows what the genocide has been, if you've been exposed to what majority of the United States wants you to see, which is Israel is our friend, or which is that they're a good, peaceful people. And you know what? A lot of the people living in Israel are. But the fact is that it's not a land that they got by being peaceful. It's a land that they stole. And it's not anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist. So many Jews true to the faith, so many Muslims and Christians true to their faith, so many people who don't even recognize a religion understand that what's happening is a humanitarian crisis. And what we can do about it is educate ourselves on why is it happening? What is the Ben Gurion Canal? How did that start the situation we face today? And if you guys want to educate yourselves, I completely implore you to do so. The Ben Gurion Canal, and as well as what all has been going on for the past 70 plus years. But we're here today saying that the situation has become so dire that even our small little village has the ability to say, you know what? We're going to be one of the few in this state, in this nation, that say we recognize what happened, we educated ourselves on what's happening, we recognize it's not a call for hate, and we want an end to the injustice where if we were to wake up there one day, or if our children were to be there one day, or have, God forbid, that situation to come to our land, what would we want the rest of the world to do, even if it were a small little village that could reach out to Dick Durbin or Tammy Duckworth, who can be a part of supporting our Congress people, our congresswoman, Cori Bush, or Jamal Bowman, or Rashida Tlaib. There are a few voices who are speaking out, and it takes a lot of courage to speak out against what our country so vehemently supports. But that's what we're here asking you to do. And it's not just a situation that's across the seas. It's a situation where a small child was able to be killed because of the hate being spread, because of people being ignorant and choosing to be ignorant. It's a place where people here are being affected not just by their families across the sea, but by their families here because of hate and ignorance. So we ask you, please, hear our pleas, educate yourselves on things that you may not be seeing, and be a voice amongst the few. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bassem Esmail. Honorable Mayor Greg Grasso and trustees, my name is Bassem Esmail. As a Palestinian living in the suburbs for 45 years, I am deeply saddened and frustrated by the ongoing violence and genocide happening in Gaza. The relentless attacks have resulted in the loss of countless innocent lives, including women, children, and infants, my fellow Palestinians. This is not just a news headline for me, it's personal. The conflict did not start on October 7th for me. On June 7th, 1967, both of our homes in the West Bank city of Ramallah were bombed by Israeli warplanes. We had 2 water wells on the 3-acre farm. They were also bombed. We did absolutely nothing to Israel. It was completely unprovoked. I even lost my right of return to my ancestral homeland. However, every Jew in the world has been given this right of return to my homeland that I have been denied. There was no Hamas or Palestinian Authority at the time, just a very peaceful government of Jordan. Israel was simply after a land grab to occupy all the lands from the river to the sea, an outright theft of land. The UN in resolutions 242 and 338 demanded the lands be returned, and even the United States of America did not veto these 2 resolutions. They were near unanimous. Furthermore, besides state land that Israel stole, they stole my family's personal lands. They designated our lands as A, B, and C. They took full control of the sea lands, which were obviously designated for illegal settlements. When I asked if I could visit my own lands, I was told, yes, you can, but you will be shot by the Israeli settlers. The United Nations reported that as of the end of February, 30,000 Palestinians were killed during this conflict, excluding those many thousands mercilessly buried under the rubble. Another 70,000 have been wounded. Among them are 70% women, children, and babies. 10 children have had 1 or more limbs amputated daily, many without anesthesia. This is not a war. It's an outright massacre. We call on the Honorable Mayor Greg Grasso and the trustees to use their influence through a resolution to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We urge them to condemn these atrocities publicly and take concrete steps towards achieving peace in the region for a 2-state solution, as the USA has proposed for 57 consecutive years. We cannot stand by while innocent lives are being lost every day. It's time we raise our voices against this genocide and demand justice for all innocent Palestinian civilians who have been victims of this ruthless aggression. Let us come together as residents of Burr Ridge, as human beings, to call for peace now. Furthermore, about 12,000 residents in Burr Ridge are taxed heavily by the federal government. A huge portion of this $18.7 billion being donated to Israel is derived from Burr Ridge taxpayers to help the Israeli regime buy 2,000-pound bombs to drop on residential neighborhoods slaughtering 100 to 200 Gazans at a time. Burr Ridge must step up to the plate and demand no residential tax proceeds be given to Israel, enabling it to commit daily genocide. We have desperate food pantries such as Loaves and Fishes, much more worthy of our tax dollars. Please join Chicago, Bolingbrook, DuPage Township, and hundreds of other cities across the USA who have called for an immediate and permanent Gaza ceasefire. Let us please stop the genocide now. Finally, I would like to say that my speech is in the form of a petition that over 1,200 suburbanites signed in the last week. I will email it to you for the consideration of your honorable signatures. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and the board. I think we made our speeches, and we really look forward for your support for studying this resolution and passing it immediately. We need that. We need to save lives. Thank you very much.
So thank you. You've given us a lot to think about. I have two questions for you. I presume that you are calling for a bilateral ceasefire. You want Hamas to stop shooting also. Right.
Once Israel
Right.
stops, I'm sure Hamas, we want to stop for the fighting, stop the fighting for sure.
Both. Both. Okay. I may. Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm just asking a question. And then, are you also calling for the release of the hostages?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
As we speak about Israeli hostages, there are also thousands of Palestinian hostages in what's called Israeli prisons, and they're not political prisoners. They're just as much hostages as...
You've answered my two questions. Thank you. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, each of us for staying, for each of you for staying and listening to each of us for this whole time. It is a lot to think about, and especially after you've gone through the entire budget for the night for this town. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Sure. Sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Okay, so now we're on reports and communications. Are there any reports and communications? No? I actually have a few that I need to tell you.
Don't have one?
No,
No?
Claire stole my
Claire
thunder
took it off. Okay. I have been perturbed, to say the least, about what's happening in the Village Center.
What's happening where?
In the Village Center. I do not understand what is taking so long to complete that project. It's costing us significant tax money. It's disrupting a significant amount of businesses. And I've asked Evan to direct a letter to Ramsey Hassan, the owner of the Village Center, and explain it to me and to us. I'm yet to get an explanation, unless he's filled you in recently. But I will be pressing him for a schedule to finish this expeditiously. I know there's a big event at Topaz for a charity event at the end of April, and I'm sure they don't want to come if this place is all torn up. It certainly hasn't helped Pella in any way. It hasn't helped Hampton Social or any of our other businesses. The Mexican restaurant, I think it's a Mexican restaurant that was going to open, hasn't opened. So I'm really disappointed in Ramsey and what he has not achieved in the Village Center, and I will continue to be all over him about that. Secondly, we did get a petition from Bridge to develop the C&H property. Up tomorrow on the website?
Yes, We will be placing the full petition on the website tomorrow at some point.
Right.
We encourage the public to explore that at their leisure, but yes, it will be fully available to the public tomorrow.
Now, because Tony is the chair of the ad hoc committee, Guy is also on that committee, as is Greg Trupek, the chairman of the Plan Commission. We, through council, have advised the two trustees and Mr. Trupek that they should be tendering their resignation from that committee because they really need to now respect the process. I'll see about appointing others to that committee and getting a new chair if they wish to meet and discuss it more. The petition will be analyzed as we do with all petitions, and it will start the process through the Plan Commission, and we'll take it up in due course. But obviously, it's 113 acres in Burr Ridge. To give you some perspective, the Village Center was about 22 acres. So we are looking at the biggest development, at least that I've been around, in Burr Ridge, and so we need to pay particular attention to that. On top of that, you know the saying, it never rains, but it pours. We did also get a petition in formally on TCF. Have we gotten one? No. Not yet? We've gotten a preliminary proposal of what the new owner wants to do at TCF, so that's going to come soon, I believe, also. So you're going to have your hands full, Tony, and the board and the Plan Commission are going to have some long nights coming ahead of us. So those are the two things I wanted to tell you. Claire did mention the charity fundraising holiday party that I'm trying to put together, and she's going to be doing most of the work, and so we'll get that done too. That's it. We've had no winter, so the next meeting will truly be in the spring.
Yep.
So it's good. We've listened to our residents and many others tonight. If anybody's interested in a resolution, I do have a draft or two I could circulate. I don't think that we should be considering anything that blames anyone. I think we heard, at least I heard, a lot of blame tonight. I don't think that's a position that anybody should get behind. But these are residents that are passionate about things that are happening, and they're affecting us all around the world. So maybe we'll give this some consideration. If it's a neutral statement, it might be appropriate for the board to at least consider. And I'll see if any of you wish to do that. With that, right now,
Mayor, Mayor.
Yes,
Mayor,
yes,
can
Joe.
I
I'm
add one
sorry,
thing?
Joe. Go ahead.
No, there's no problem. We had asked about the FOIA requests, and I had brought up the fact that I'd like to see the FOIA, if I can ask the village administrator, Mr. Evan, to produce and put on our website all of the individuals who are requesting the FOIAs for whatever reason, generate the additional costs for our village, so that all of our village residents know who these individuals are, and they continue asking things that were already asked and answered. So, Mr. Evan, would you let us know a little bit about what I requested prior, please?
Yes, so to your original question, yes, we can place that on the village website. In summary, and this is something I completed in the last few days, we spent about $25,000 on FOIA request responses this fiscal year, and that is primarily with our council's assistance that they have rendered, and it's been very effective, council, I should add. About 80% of that is responding to FOIA requester appeals to the state who've been claiming that we are not following the law in some capacity. And to date, I have no record that we have not followed the law on anything related to FOIA or OMA. The village is not able to preempt these things. These are things we have to respond to. Requesters have the right to make those appeals under the law. It's something called the Public Access Counselor, and that is part of the Attorney General's office with the state of Illinois. So these are things we must respond to. To respond to them would be really in default of a civil proceeding, which is not a place the village should be in, especially if we've done nothing wrong. On top of that, dollars and cents costs, there's also the staff costs of these things. We have to have staff do FOIA responses instead of responding to other internal needs or external resident needs. So FOIA has gone up. If you'd like to look in our budget, there has been a market increase in the number of FOIAs. If you look in the administration department, that's one of our performance measures. I think we did 190 last year, and I think we probably are on track to do about a little less than that this year, but still a lot of FOIAs. Those FOIAs are pretty benign. They're people asking for their permits for their houses and things like that, but that is a summary position that we're at this point. Again, I'll be happy to post that information publicly online at your request board. So any other questions, I'm here.
Thank you.
All right, Joe?
Thank you.
Anyone else tonight? All right, we have a meeting scheduled for March 25th. Again, I'm hoping we don't need it, but we will certainly have it if you have any budget questions that need to be answered. In the meantime, don't hesitate to call Evan and get your answers through him.
I think the only thing we have to, well, besides, I mean, from my point of view, we have to solve for the 200,000 deficit that we will face.
Yeah, and I don't know that we'll, so yes, and I don't know that we'll have to solve it in the budget. I mean, we're healthy enough where we'll probably work through it this year, but we will have to be planning future budgets without that 200,000.
Correct.
We have called, the mayors are going to be calling on the governor to do more than just grandstand and take away municipal money, which is what he, in my opinion, he has done. It certainly is a regressive tax also, in my opinion. We shouldn't be taxing groceries when you sit down and think about it. But that's, we have for many, 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 many decades, and many villages have really counted on that money. We're not going to get hurt nearly as much as many villages. Think about the city of Chicago, and the number I heard was that that takes $80 million out of the city of Chicago budget. Now, you know, even $80 million can hurt the city of Chicago. So there's going to be some kind of petition to the governor to replace this in some manner. One of the things that I have advocated already is to increase the local government distributive fund, which is already 40% lower than it should be. We should be getting 10% of the sales tax. We're only getting about 6.4. I think it's about 6.4% now. And so, you know, that's been taken away since 2011 from the municipalities. It's time to start giving it back to us. So that is certainly an avenue that's being explored. But right now, Anita, we are thankfully in such good shape, as Joe and others and everybody has indicated tonight, that we'll weather that immediate hit, but we will have to plan, as we always do, going forward. So that's that. Thank you for a long meeting tonight. Give some thought to what some of the people said tonight, and if you want to pursue it, please let me know. I might float an idea or two to you, but with that, can I get a motion to adjourn till 6:30 on March 25th?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
.org.